Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand something today. Something that will change the way you look at your life, your circumstances, and even the struggles you're facing right now. God, in His infinite wisdom, is setting you up for a big blessing. You may not see it now, but I want you to trust in His plan. There's a divine purpose unfolding, even when the path ahead seems uncertain, even when the world around you feels chaotic, and even when the mountains before you seem insurmountable. Life has a way of throwing challenges at us, doesn't it? There are times when we feel defeated, broken, or discouraged. We question why things aren't going the way we hoped, why our prayers seem unanswered, or why things seem to be falling apart instead of falling into place. But here's the truth: your current struggle is not the final chapter of your story. It is, in fact, part of a much bigger picture that God is painting for you. He is at work behind the scenes, even when you can't see it. Remember, God doesn't work according to our timetable. He's not limited by the constraints we face in the natural world. His timing is perfect. The moment you feel most alone or frustrated, He is shaping you, refining you, preparing you for something greater than you could ever imagine. When the doors seem closed, He's working on the lock, and the moment you least expect it, He will open it wide. So, if you're going through a trial today, hold on, don't give up. It may feel like you're in a season of waiting, but waiting is often where God does His most profound work. There's a verse in the scriptures that says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." Those aren't just words, they are a promise. God has plans for you, plans to bless you in ways you cannot even begin to fathom. The pain, the delays, the challenges, they are not meant to destroy you. They are part of His preparation process, refining your character, deepening your faith, and enlarging your heart for the blessings He is about to pour into your life. It's important to remember that God works in ways that sometimes seem contrary to our understanding. You may feel like you're stuck in a season of hardship, but don't let that deceive you into thinking God has forgotten you. In fact, He is closer than ever, working in the unseen places, making arrangements, and setting things in motion. You are not just going through your trials randomly, you are being positioned for a greater outpouring of His goodness and grace. The blessing is coming. It's not a matter of if, but when. You must remain steadfast in your faith and trust that what God is doing in your life right now, even in the midst of uncertainty, is preparing you for the breakthrough you've been waiting for. Trust Him with all your heart, and don't lean on your own understanding. Know that every step, every trial, and every victory is bringing you closer to the abundant blessing He has in store for you. God is setting you up for a big blessing, and it's going to be greater than anything you've ever imagined. Stay faithful, keep believing. Sometimes, in the midst of our struggles and challenges, we can't help but wonder why things aren't unfolding the way we hoped or planned. The timing seems off, and the answers to our prayers appear delayed. We may find ourselves questioning if God is really listening or if His plan for us is even working out. But I want to remind you today that God's timing is always perfect. Even when it feels like nothing is happening, He is working behind the scenes, orchestrating every detail of your life. You see, we tend to look at life through the lens of our limited understanding and finite perspective. We are bound by time, we make plans based on what we can see right in front of us, and we expect immediate results. But God in His wisdom is not bound by time. He operates outside of our constraints. What may seem like a delay to us is actually part of His divine processes. God knows exactly what He's doing, and He knows the perfect moment to bring about His purposes in your life. When you're in a season of waiting, it can be easy to become discouraged. The promises of God might seem distant, and the journey ahead may look long. It's during these times that our faith is truly tested. But it's important to remember that God doesn't work according to our timetable. He works according to his eternal plan. He sees the whole picture, while we often only see a small piece of it. There are times when God needs to prepare us for what's ahead, and that preparation requires waiting. It requires trust. It requires us to surrender our timing and align ourselves with His will. Think about the story of Abraham. God promised him that he would be the father of many nations, but Abraham had to wait years, decades in fact, before that promise came to pass. And even when he was in the waiting, it seemed impossible, humanly speaking. But God's timing was perfect. The promise didn't come too early or too late. It came exactly when it was supposed to. Had God's plan unfolded sooner, it wouldn't have had the same impact or the same significance. Abraham's story is a reminder that God's delays are not denials. The time He chooses to act is the right time. There's also the example of Joseph. Joseph had a dream that one day his brothers and even his parents would bow down to him. But after receiving that dream, Joseph didn't immediately rise to greatness. Instead, he was betrayed, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. For years, it looked as though his dream would never come to pass. But throughout all of Joseph's trials, God was positioning him. God was preparing him for the role he was meant to fulfill. When the time was right, God elevated him to a place of influence where he could not only fulfill his dream, but also save an entire nation from famine. God's timing was perfect. What we learn from these stories is that waiting on God's timing is not wasted time. It's a time of preparation. It's a time when God is strengthening your character, building your faith, and aligning your heart with His purpose. Waiting isn't passive. It's an active process of trusting and obeying. It's in the waiting that we learn to depend on God, to trust His sovereignty, and to see His hand at work in ways we wouldn't recognize if everything happened immediately. So, when you find yourself in a season of waiting, remind yourself that God is working. He's working on your behalf even when you can't see it. He's shaping you, preparing you, and positioning you for the breakthrough that's coming. Don't let the waiting make you lose hope. Instead, use this time to grow in your faith, to draw closer to Him, and to trust that His plan for you is far greater than anything you could orchestrate on your own. The moment you think nothing is happening, God is setting everything in place for His perfect will to unfold in your life. And when the time is right, you'll see it all come together in a way that will leave you in awe of His perfect timing. When we face difficulties and setbacks in life, it can be easy to question why these things are happening to us. We might wonder if we're doing something wrong or if we've somehow strayed off course. The truth is, struggles and hardships are not a sign that we are failing or being punished. Rather, they are often a part of God's plan to refine us and position us for the blessings He has in store. The challenges we face are an integral part of the process, a process that prepares us for something greater than we could ever imagine. God doesn't waste any experience. Every struggle, every trial, and every heartache has a purpose. In fact, sometimes it's in our most difficult moments that we grow the most. When things are easy, we tend to become complacent. It's when we face adversity that we are forced to lean into God's strength, deepen our faith, and trust in His provision. Struggles aren't meant to break us, but to build us. They are the weight that strengthens our spiritual muscles and helps us develop the character we need to carry the blessings God wants to give us. Consider the example of gold being refined in a furnace. Gold, in its natural state, is full of impurities. It has to go through the fire to be purified. The heat doesn't destroy the gold, but rather removes the imperfections, leaving behind something beautiful and pure. In the same way, God allows us to go through trials that refine us, shaping us into the people He wants us to be. He uses these experiences to remove the impurities from our hearts and minds, allowing us to become vessels that can hold the blessings He's preparing for us. Think about the life of Joseph again. After being sold into slavery by his brothers, Joseph could have become bitter and angry. He could have questioned why God allowed him to endure such hardship. But Joseph didn't give up or lose faith. Instead, he chose to trust in God's plan, even in the midst of his suffering. His time as a slave and in prison wasn't wasted. God was shaping Joseph's character, teaching him humility, wisdom, and patience. Those qualities would later be crucial when Joseph was elevated to a position of power in Egypt, where he would save many lives during a time of famine. The trials Joseph faced were not meant to harm him, but to prepare him for his divine destiny. Similarly, when we face hardship, we must trust that God is at work. We may not understand the reasons for our struggles at the moment, but we can trust that they are part of a greater plan. The challenges we face aren't just random occurrences. They are opportunities for growth and preparation. God uses them to teach us lessons we couldn't learn any other way. If everything were easy, we wouldn't develop the resilience, perseverance, or faith that we need to sustain us through the greater blessings He has for us. Sometimes our struggles also help us to develop a heart of compassion for others. When we've been through pain and hardship ourselves, we are better equipped to empathize with those who are going through similar situations. Our experiences allow us to minister to others in a way that would be impossible if we had not walked through the same difficulties. God can take the pain we've endured and turn it into something that not only strengthens us, but also helps others along the way. As we go through life's difficulties, it's important to remember that God is always with us. We are never alone in our struggles. He is right beside us, guiding us through the storms and providing us with the strength we need to endure. The trials we face are not meant to defeat us, but to refine us and to equip us for the blessings He is preparing. God knows exactly what we need, and He allows us to go through trials that will shape us into the person we need to become in order to fulfill His purpose for our lives. So, when life feels tough, don't be discouraged. Trust that God is using the challenges you face to prepare you for something greater. Know that the difficulties you endure today are part of God's refining process, and they are positioning you for the blessings and the destiny He has planned for you. Instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What is God teaching me through this?" Embrace the struggle, because it's through the struggles that we are shaped into the people we are meant to be. God's plans for your life are not random, they are intentional, filled with purpose and designed to lead you to a future full of hope and promise. When we look at our lives from a human perspective, it's easy to be discouraged when things don't seem to be working out. The road seems long, the obstacles seem insurmountable, and it feels like we're stuck in a never-ending cycle of disappointment. But God is not just watching us struggle from a distance. He has a plan, and it is one that is meant to prosper us. His promise is clear. His plans for you are for good, not for harm, to give you a future and a hope. At times it might feel like you're facing a dead end, like there is no way forward and all the doors are closing. But I want you to remember that God's promises are true, even when our circumstances suggest otherwise. Just because things are difficult doesn't mean God has abandoned you. In fact, sometimes it's in the moments of greatest difficulty that His plans are coming together behind the scenes in ways you cannot yet see. His plan is always better than anything we could have imagined for ourselves. His ways are higher than our ways, and His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. When we trust in His plan, we can be certain that He will bring good from every situation, even when we can't fully understand it in the moment. Think about the lives of the patriarchs in the Bible. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob each had to walk through their own series of challenges, setbacks, and disappointments, but each one of them was part of God's unfolding plan for the nation of Israel. In the midst of their struggles, God was faithfully working, ensuring that His promises to them would come to pass. Abraham was promised a son, and through that son, the generations that would form the nation of Israel. But Abraham had to wait many years before God's promise was fulfilled. His trust in God's timing and faithfulness is a lesson for all of us. Abraham's story is a powerful reminder that God's promises are worth the wait. Joseph's life is another example of how God's plans unfold in ways we might never expect. Joseph was given a dream that one day he would rise to a position of power and influence, but the path to that dream was filled with betrayal, false accusations, and years of imprisonment. Despite all the setbacks, Joseph's trust in God never wavered. He believed that God had a purpose for him, and even when things looked bleak, he continued to walk in faith. And in the end, God's plan was revealed in a way that not only brought Joseph into a position of power, but also enabled him to save his family and many others from a devastating famine. God's plan for you works in the same way. It may not look the way you expect, and it may take longer than you hoped, but it is always a good plan. You may be in a season of waiting or struggling, and it may feel like your prayers are going unanswered, but I want to encourage you today. God is not unaware of your situation. He is working in the background, arranging things, aligning circumstances, and moving hearts. He is not slow in keeping his promises. What may seem like a delay is simply God's perfect timing at work. The moments that seem like setbacks are often God's way of preparing you for something even greater than you can imagine. When we try to take matters into our own hands, we often find ourselves rushing ahead of God's plan, and that can lead to disappointment. But when we trust in his plan, we open ourselves up to a future that is beyond our wildest dreams. God's plans for us are not limited by our own understanding, and they are not confined by the boundaries of what we can see. His vision for our lives is far greater than we can comprehend. We may not always understand the road we're on, but we can be certain that God is leading us in the right direction. He is always faithful to his promises, and he will not leave us or forsake us. When you begin to truly grasp the fact that God has a plan for you, a plan for your good, you can rest in the peace that comes from knowing he is in control. Even when the world seems uncertain, you can hold on to the confidence that his purpose will prevail. God has your future in his hands, and he is guiding you step by step toward the blessings he has promised. His plans for you are filled with hope, and he will see them through to completion. You are part of his divine story, and he is writing a beautiful future for you, one step at a time. When we go through seasons of waiting, it's natural to become restless, to question why things aren't moving as quickly as we'd like. We live in a world that values instant results, immediate gratification, and quick solutions. But God's ways are different. Waiting is not a passive activity. It is a time of preparation, a time when God is doing a deep work in us that can't always be seen on the surface. The waiting period is an opportunity for us to grow in ways we wouldn't otherwise, and it is crucial to the process of receiving the blessing God has for us. First, we must recognize that waiting isn't wasted time. When we feel like we're stuck, waiting for the next step or the next season, it's easy to become discouraged. We might think that nothing is happening, that things are moving too slowly, or that we've been forgotten. But God is always at work, even when we can't see it. Waiting is a season in which God shapes our hearts, builds our patience, and strengthens our faith. It's when we wait that we learn to trust him more deeply, to rely on his timing, and to acknowledge that his ways are higher than ours. Think about the story of David. When God anointed David as the future king of Israel, David was just a young shepherd boy. He wasn't immediately given the throne, though. Instead, he spent years running from King Saul, hiding in caves, and enduring hardships. During this time, God was preparing David's heart. He was teaching David leadership, humility, and dependence on God. David was being trained in the wilderness so that he could lead Israel with wisdom and integrity when the time was right. Had David been placed on the throne too soon, he would not have had the character or maturity to lead the people well. Waiting gave him the chance to grow into the king God called him to be. In our own lives, we may not always understand the delays we face. Maybe you've been waiting for a promotion, a change in your circumstances, or for a relationship to be restored. It can be frustrating when things don't seem to be moving forward, but just like David, God may be using this time of waiting to prepare you for the next season of your life. He's working on your character, teaching you lessons that will equip you to handle the blessings He has in store. The more we allow God to work in us during the waiting periods, the more we position ourselves to handle the responsibility and the gifts that He will eventually give us. Waiting also deepens our relationship with God. When we're waiting for something we deeply desire, it forces us to rely on Him in ways we might not have otherwise. It's easy to go to God when we need something, but it's in the waiting that we learn to seek His presence just for who He is. The waiting period becomes a time of intimacy with God, where we are reminded that He is not just the giver of blessings, but He is also our portion. We learn to find contentment and peace in Him, regardless of our circumstances.